Kevin Polk and Phil Tenaglia work together to produce The Art of Being with the ACT Matrix podcast, and they offer a certification course in the ACT Matrix as well. Both are psychologists. Kevin describes himself as semi-retired, but is just about the busiest person you could possibly hope to meet. While Phil has focused much of his career and work with teachers and at-risk students in regular and special education classrooms. So Kevin and Phil, welcome to Shrink Wrap Radio.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
So first of all, Kevin, let's start with a little bit of your background. Could you tell us about your training, your experience, and how you came to develop the ACT Matrix? I know that's a big question, but I know that you'll be able to simplify it.
I will simplify it. Okay. It is a little bit of a story. I was taking undergraduate psychology courses. As somebody who was in experimental psychology, took me under their wing, and I started, and even back then as an undergraduate, I co-authored a paper in experimental psychology. That got me into graduate school. And so, but for whatever reason, I ended up studying industrial organizational psychology, really. But all the while, I kept working with the experimental psychology folks, people that were looking at information processing, cognitive processing. And about the time I was getting done with my master's, one thing led to another, and I jumped over into the clinical psychology program. Because I'm a nice guy, and people were having fun talking to me and stuff. But I kept on working with the experimental cognitive processing, information processing folks. And that's what I did my dissertation in. My dissertation is in information processing. Okay, so it makes sense. You'll see. So then I get a clinical psychology degree, and I go to work in the Veterans Administrative Hospital in the United States, so VA, working with people with post-traumatic stress disorder. And we didn't have any real way of dealing with people with stress disorder back when I started. I mean, it was just anything goes. Over the years, they developed some exposure therapies, meaning you figure out how to get the person to recall the traumatic memory and then expose it that way. You couldn't get anybody to do that. Then along comes ACT. And I've discovered acceptance and commitment therapy. And that is a cool way of getting people to expose themselves to the environment and learn how to reintegrate themselves back into the world instead of avoiding life because they didn't want to have their trauma memories. So I went to work trying to diagram the ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, sort of according to, here it comes, information processing.
I see.
Right. That's where it comes from. Kevin's doing these diagrams, looking at it from the point of view of an information processing model. And I'm doing diagram after diagram, trying to figure out. And the main thing is that most people start with ACT, and they start teaching ACT. And by the way, ACT stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy.
Yeah.
So you teach people what acceptance means, and then you teach people what commitment means. And then you just teach and teach. Well, it doesn't work that well that way. It doesn't, but we all start that way. The real way you want to do it is get people into the process of living from this point of view. And so that's the diagram I was looking for. The diagram was actually meant to interact with people and get them into the acceptance and commitment training process really instantly. Phil was around back then.
So Phil,
he was already around when I was doing these diagrams, working late into the night, doing these diagrams, trying to figure out how to do it. And then one day, I was reading a book. What was I reading, Phil?
Derived Relational Responding.
Derived Relational Responding.
How about that for a heady title?
A real page turner. Oh,
really?
Let me tell you. And I'm just eating it up because I've been working on this stuff, and suddenly this idea to do a trauma sorting game, right, Phil? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, and
You're
so
trying to help your clients sort their trauma memories.
sort their trauma memories, and I got to playing with that, and then boom, the Matrix showed up. Never did a trauma sorting game. Finally did the Matrix, and I said, "That's ACT." I shortened ACT. That's it. I got it down. I got it, and it's still the same Matrix to this day. That is, senses at the top. So that's where the sensory input, the information processing, that's where it's coming in.
Cheap visual
And
stuff
here's
going on here.
So everybody on a podcast know I'm describing this. If you're on YouTube, there's a visual, there's senses coming in. So when we talk about information processing, like my dissertation, the information's coming in through your senses. So, you see things, hear things, taste things, it's coming in through your senses. And then it gets down to the bottom of the vertical line.
So you said that's a vertical line running down the middle.
Vertical line, and then it's down into your mind. Okay, now my whole dissertation was about that process and stuff, but we won't get into that. And then I said, well, but then people, they move around in the world, right? They do things within the world. They behave. And when they behave, really, it boils down to two different sets of behaviors. One is that you're doing things to move toward who and what's important to you. You're going to get a reward. You're going to go hug your kid or something, It's toward move. And the other thing all of us humans do a lot of is away moves. That is, something frightens us, and so we scurry away. Or something hurts us, and so we try to get rid of the pain. So I labeled those away moves, and voila, I had.
So it's basically two quadrants.
Two cross lines.
Two cross lines.
Four horizontal, vertical.
And four quadrants instantly show up.
Four quadrants.
Yep. And then we stuck stuff inside the four quadrants.
Yeah.
Well,
Bill was along on the ride for the sticking stuff into the four quadrants.
Right.
Well, if we go in, we'll do a loop around the matrix in a moment. But just to sort of like recap, Phil, a little bit about your potted history and how you came to meet Kevin and get involved in this process.
Well, I am trained as a school psychologist, and then did some clinical work, and I actually have had my feet into both camps of school and also doing private practice work as a family therapist for many, many years, and always trying to get the clinical stuff into the school stuff, because we need stuff like that in schools, especially where I work with troubled students. So I was always looking for ways of engaging them and helping them to, as we call it, get unstuck and get moving. I came to ACT much like Kevin did later in the game, but like I knew it was good stuff, and I just could not wrap my head around it. It was, when you start to read about ACT, it's very geeky stuff, and then trying to keep all that stuff in your head while you're trying to work with people is just a real brain cramp. So along comes Kevin. I see this brochure, ACT for Powerful Life Change. Kevin Polk. So I'm like, there's my man. I'm going to go see this guy, right? And it's a cold January day. I mean, it was freezing. There was absolutely no heat in the room that we were in. And Kevin was able to pull off the first part of the session with no heat in a cold room in January. So I'll say something about what he's able to do. And this was pre-Matrix, right before he developed it.
About 3 months, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months. And then he's in Maine and I'm in Langhorne, which is not real close to each other, but we established this relationship, ongoing relationship, where I said, I am going to suck up everything Kevin has to say, and I'm going to take it and bring it into the schools. So that was my role in this, was to take it and say, you know what, this stuff is going to work great in the school. So I took it and started it in with my
and it
students.
did. It worked
And it did.
in school, still does.
And not only that, the kids liked it, and then the teachers noticed that the kids were changing. So then the teachers wanted to know what I was doing, and that got me into the classroom. And before you know it, I got the matrix going in the classroom with the teachers and the students.
And so, Izzy, quickly note that the clinical part of the ACT matrix is teeny.
Yeah.
It's little. And the outside clinical part is huge.
Yeah.
What do you mean exactly by that?
It's just that it got outside of clinical
So into the
and
wide world of
went
helping people.
into the world, the wide world of education, sports, um,
addiction treatment.
businesses.
Yep, yep.
It has just gotten into everything because it's simply a way of looking at how a human. It's just a way of looking at a human.
It's just a point of view.
It's just a point of view, and so anybody can pick it up and use it. And when you have a tool that anybody can pick up and use, they tend to pick it up and use it.
If it's useful, they'll pick it up and use it.
Okay, so let's give people a guide to how useful it is.
Okay.
I'm getting excited now. We've got to go through it.
Well, it's pretty easy.
All
Okay,
right, so
first you already remember we have the senses at the top, mind at the bottom, toward to the right, away to the left. And it's a horizontal line and a vertical line. They cross, and that forms 4 quadrants if you're sort of mathematical. The way we do it, we start in the lower right-hand quadrant and say, okay, this is where you're going to put the stuff or the people who are important to you. And so, and we'll ask, like Izzy, hey, Izzy, who's important to you?
My family and my animals.
See, family and animals. By the way, folks, animals get in 99% of the time.
Oh, do they? I'm so pleased because
animals are people.
They are.
It is. If you do this very much and ask people that question, animals almost always show up.
And then, folks, you can see if you're not watching and you go back to watch, what we do then is write down whatever they say and put it in the lower right-hand quadrant.
Right. So now it's up there. It says family and animals, and you could go on, but it doesn't matter. Now we get it over to the lower left, and remember we're inside the human right now. Except for Izzy telling us who was important to us, we wouldn't have otherwise known.
Right.
It's inside of her. And so the other inside stuff, that goes on is what we gave a very technical name to. It's called yucky stuff.
Yeah.
Yucky means you want to get rid of it. It's like getting yucky junk on your fingers and you want to get rid of it.
Gum on your shoe.
You want to get rid of it. Yeah. And that's basically it. So you're going to do things to try to get rid of this yucky feeling. Fear is a biggie. And we'll usually say to people, it's like fear. And you do stuff to move away from things that frighten you. So, and when you do and you successfully move away, you feel relief. You go, whoo, I feel better. I don't have that fear anymore. I got away from the danger, right? So that's that. People also move away from pain, right? So if you're hurting, usually you'll take some aspirin or do something to get rid of the pain. So I'd say, Izzy, do you have any other kinds of yucky stuff that ever show up inside of you that you want to get rid of?
Sometimes sadness.
There you go.
And frustration and loneliness. Those things. Those things.
Right, and those are the kind of things that show up, and they don't feel very good. And ultimately,
show up nonetheless.
You may well do behaviors to try to get rid of.
You're going to make a move.
Right, move, and so like to get rid of. You said frustration.
Yeah.
What might you do with your body? Now, when we go to the upper part of the matrix, now we can see you moving.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can see you.
It's just a public you.
Right. This is a public you. Right. We can see it. And so what might we be able to see you doing to lessen frustration?
Complaining.
It's one of my favorite ones.
That is my all-time favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots of things.
Exactly. We all, anybody listening to this podcast knows exactly what that is.
Mm-hmm.
You get frustrated, you go, darn it, you're complaining. It's we do. And sadness. Everybody gets sadness sometimes. What might you do to get move away from, have less sadness?
Well, and I know because I've heard you talking about this on the podcast. One of the things that I might do is to get away from sadness. I do learning, and learning in part is like a move away, but it also has a move towards, because one of the things I like is gaining knowledge.
She's an expert.
Yeah, she's advanced. She's advanced, folks.
She knows how to do it too.
She knows how to do it.
But we'll just say that, there are people, you'll feel sad, so you get a book and learn something.
Yeah.
You turn on a documentary, right?
Yeah.
Right. you're feeling sad, sort of lonely or whatever, there's lots of good documentaries. I say documentaries because those are usually educational.
Yep.
But you know, in your heart of hearts, you go, yeah, but it's a bit of an away move.
Yeah.
But now we'll go over to the toward side, especially in terms of moving toward who's important to you. What might you do to move toward who's important?
Like your family member there.
Keep it simple. Something we can watch you doing.
Well, cuddling the animals.
Cuddling, there we go.
All right, here we go.
We're cuddling humans, cuddling animals, either way. We can see you doing it.
I like to send appreciative texts to people just when I think about them, just to say, you know, I love you, I'm thinking of you.
Right,
yeah.
Great. Best, I mean, I know people diss on phones and stuff, but that's one of the greatest uses of smartphones.
Yeah.
Is that ability to send text to your loved ones when you think about them.
Yep.
You know, it's really cool. All right. So text, cuddle, you know, you can go to dinner with folks.
Sure.
You know, talk to them, spend time
Hug
with
them.
them. All kinds of stuff shows up. And so now that you do that, you say, well, you just take yourself and the you know, you put who and what's important to you in the lower right. You put yucky stuff in the lower left. You put your favorite away moves in the upper left, and you put your favorite toward moves in the upper right, and voila, you got a nice picture of yourself.
It looks like that.
Picture, point of view. Now it's a different way of looking at yourself, because whether you're on YouTube or not, we now have a nice self-portrait of Izzy right up there on it, but it's just an unusual self-portrait. Yeah. But now she can look at it and go, oh yeah, those people are important to me. Oh yeah, that's the yucky stuff that shows up. Oh yeah, that's my favorite away moves. And oh yeah, that's my favorite toward moves. Cool. Now I can see all that stuff. And I hadn't seen it that way before.
Right.
It just sums it all up for you. It's right there before you. And now we can say, hey, Izzy, you know, you think when you're sad that you always have to do an away move when you're sad?
You get into a habit of doing those.
No, I
same
said, do
things.
You have to always?
You have to.
No, I don't have
you.
to.
I trapped you. Right.
I don't.
Like, of course you don't. No, you could have sadness and go ahead and do a toward move.
Yeah.
Right. And how about anxiety? We didn't get anxiety on there, but all of us have anxiety, you know, and we do things to reduce it for sure. But there's times when we just go ahead and have the anxiety and do the toward move towards something. By the way, that's called acceptance.
Yeah.
And now we got into that idea of you can actually learn how to accept stuff that's going on inside of you and go on about the business of moving toward who and what's important to you. And that's sort of the essence of acceptance and commitment training. You're just doing it. But rather than teach somebody about it, you just show them the diagram and it just shows up.
Yeah. And they experience it.
So let's go to a classroom setting. Phil's taught a teacher how to set that up. And a teacher has put it up in the classroom.
Yep.
And so now the kids can stare at it.
Yeah.
So, you know, little Susie or little Johnny or somebody's doing something like throwing spitballs. Let's put it, that's an old timey one, right? Throw spitballs.
Oh, they still do a bit of that.
Well, they still do a bit of that. And so now you can stop and the teacher can look at the diagram and say, well, I wonder where throwing spitballs would go onto that diagram. That's just an interesting question, isn't it? Where does throwing spitballs go on that diagram?
Yeah, little Johnny, where would you put that?
And that is,
upper left.
Right, but and that is called how you contextualize somebody's behavior.
Yeah.
And that's the fancy name for it. But the thing is that little Johnny or Susie or whoever can't look at throwing spitballs the same way anymore. Now the spitball within the classroom has a purpose.
Yeah.
It's toward or it's away.
And
we're okay with whatever.
It doesn't matter either way, because they can throw on the toward side too. I put it on the toward side.
We're fine with that.
You're never going to say, cool.
We don't care where they put it.
And this,
But
it seems to me that this is all queuing up one of the main factors in the acceptance and commitment therapy, and I know from the ACT matrix as well, the observer self and noticing.
You got it.
That's it. So we're triggering when we ask little Susie or Johnny, "Hey, where does you throwing spitballs go up here?" Little Susie or Johnny then uses their observer self to look at the diagram and go, "Wow, that is sort of interesting.
Yeah, really.
Where does my spitball throwing go?" And we've queued up their observer self to look at it, and that's what you want to do with people. And we've also gotten out of the trap of trying to tell them what not to do, because we know how well it works when we tell them to stop throwing.
Oh, they just automatically stop, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right on time.
They become little angels.
Yeah.
And don't
Hands
do it
are folded.
whatsoever.
I'll never do it again.
And we gotten out of a lot of that. So you can see, so we can take it and put it in the classroom, Phil could, and now you got a really different way of interacting with people. We'll do loop 2 in a second. You can do loop 2 as well, but that's just an example of how you might use that first one where you ask people who and what's important to you. You know, and you just say, "Hey, Susie, is that moving you toward who's important to you?" She might say, "Yeah, I want to get a date with so-and-so, and the only way I can get his attention
I'm getting his
is with a
attention.
spitball." Well, okay, there you go.
And that could work.
And this is where the workability comes in, which
Absolutely.
is another key element. Can you explain that to the audience a little bit, because I think it's an important concept, isn't it?
It is very important.
Sure,
Because
yes.
some of the away moves can be workable,
very
but a
That's
lot
where
of the
we're
time,
pointing to, right?
Yeah.
That's where we're going to, right?
Yeah.
We're getting to workability.
Draw in your mind's eye, draw a circle all the way around the matrix. Just one big circle all the way around the matrix.
So it looks like
Bill
that.
is doing it for us on the YouTube channel,
on the YouTube
video channel. But in your mind's eye, you can draw a circle, and all around you can ask this question: does the behavior work to get me where I want to go in life? That's what, when Izzy says workability, that's the question she's asking. Is the behavior working to get me where I want to go in life? And so that means, I like to use the getting out of the way of the bus example. You know, let's say that you have the purpose in life, or, you know, the goal in life to stay alive. It's a very common goal.
I'll vote for that.
And so you go to step out on a curb, off of a curb, you look to the left or to the right, whichever, and there's a big old bus coming at you. Fear shows up inside of you. You go, and you jump backwards away from the fear. It reduced the fear. It saved your life. And you might then say, "Gee, did that work for where I want to go in life?" And you go,
yes,
"Yeah."
Oh, heck yes, it did. I got to write it up on here.
Right. You go, "Yeah, that away move worked really well. I'm alive. I like it.
I could use that again too,
I can
maybe.
do it again." Right. Well, let's go to a little more mundane, but let's say you got a headache.
Yeah.
You know, and you go to the medicine cabinet and get your favorite pain reliever. You know, I'm over the counter stuff. I'm not talking illicit things, but aspirin or acetaminophen or ibuprofen or whatever you go for, and you take it. Well, that's an away move, right, Izzy?
yeah,
It's an away move, but it works and it gets rid of your headache.
Great for headaches.
so that's fair enough.
And that's fair enough. And more than likely, you're going to be able to do other cool stuff.
Because you haven't got a headache.
Because you don't have a headache, right? Yeah. And so there's a workable away. Okay, another. I am really stressed out. Phil's been stressed out like hell lately. As a matter of fact, he's heading. He wants to go to yoga tonight. He's so stressed out.
Yeah, got to yoga at my stress.
He's on. I'm going to yoga because I am really stressed out. Yeah. Now, Phil, if you're going to yoga because you're really stressed out, where might you sort or put?
Oh, I'm going to probably put that on the upper left.
Up in the upper left, right? So yoga
With pleasure.
Goes in the upper left.
I'm looking forward to going to that yoga class.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to get stretched out.
That's right.
Some of the stress, right? Yoga's a way move. Voila. Does it work?
Yes.
Well, only for a few tens of millions of people. Yeah. Now there comes your two for coming in, but well, could we also say that's for my health? Yeah, you can say it's for your health, but the real motivator is that he's really stressed out and he wants to go to yoga.
Yeah.
That's what's really getting him out the door into yoga class is the stress. And so it's more an away move than it is that. So we're always looking at that. Maybe to go to the toward side, you know. So you got somebody you'd really like to ask out on a date. Right? So
yeah.
Yep.
All right, we've all been there, you know. Really want to ask
potentially important person.
Now, are there workable ways to ask people out on a date and not so workable ways to ask people out on a date? What do you think?
Well, throwing some meatballs in their face and expecting that that's going to work to gain their attention might not be.
Might work for grade schoolers or.
Yeah, but not necessarily for a 40-something.
Well, the new classic now would be to get on your phone to
text.
Start getting on the phone and doing.
So the intention, my point is the intention is a toward move.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work.
No.
Right. That it's going to be totally workable. It may not be a workable toward move. Maybe.
Yeah.
So you can do the analysis and know is my motivation as a toward move or an away move, but you still then ask, is it working?
Does it work?
Get me where I want to go. Does it work? Does the behavior work? That workability is always there it's always there in ACT. They don't talk about it very explicitly. We were just able to put it in very easily, explicitly into the matrix model.
And one of the things with away moves that I think you've pointed out is that sometimes away moves, they have this kind of like temporary way and then just drop you back in the stress or in the fear. So you end up kind of looping around in that left-hand side.
Yeah, we name those stuck loops. Yeah. Well, yeah, we all get in those where you do something to get some relief. The relief ends up being very temporary.
Yeah.
So the anxiety or the pain or whatever comes right back. And then you can get into the stuck loop, which is, okay, now I'm going to do something else to get rid of it. And that works a little while, but then it comes back. Well, I'll do something else to get rid of it. Now, and we could get into the substance abuse realm here. You know, well, I'll take a drink to get rid of my anxiety. Oh, that worked. Great. It's coming back. What do I do now? Oh, take 2 drinks. Good idea. Do that. Oh, that worked. Okay. Anxiety's coming back. Now what do I do? I'll add a couple of pills with my drinks. There we go. Now, I'm making a bad situation here, but you can get yourself.
Yeah,
Bill that showed a nice little stuck loop of yucky stuff showing up. You do stuff in the upper left to get rid of it. It's temporary solutions. It comes right back, and then you try to get rid of it. My goodness, folks, that is where it sort of does get clinical. You can trap your whole life inside stuck loops.
Spend a lot of time there.
Alcoholics, heroin addicts, opioid addicts, those kind of folks.
Well, and I suppose a lot of situations like agoraphobia or, a lot of clinical situations, you feel nervous about going out, so you stay in, and then that increases.
Exactly.
You
get the relief, but you don't get the life.
All of us know a little bit of stuck.
Yeah, got to do a little bit.
That's no big deal.
That's okay.
But when you get into that kind of stuck, you're not getting out of your house, or you're doing drugs constantly and stuff. That's a whole level, and that's sort of the clinical part of the matrix, but doesn't show up very often. I don't do clinical work anymore. So.
Well, one of the things and I know for all psychologists out there, this is a stupid question, but for people who are in training or who like me are lay people, one of the misapprehensions we often get is, oh, acceptance. Does that mean that if things are really horrible, we should just put up with everything? And I think that's a lot of people with issues like mindfulness and kind of Buddhism, and there are a lot of ways in which people can be persuaded that the only problem is the way they see a situation, right, and that there isn't anything that they should actually change in the real world. They should just accept it and have a positive outlook. But that's not what we're saying here with acceptance, is it?
No, not at all.
No way.
You literally are choosing behaviors.
Yeah.
You're not, now you're doing behaviors with feelings going on the inside of you, which is pretty well all the time. We're all doing behaviors. And while we're doing behaviors, there's stuff going on the inside of us. That's what it means by acceptance.
Yeah.
That you can go ahead and do a behavior and have the inside stuff at the same time. But you're not a slave to moving toward or away.
No.
You can choose what you want to do.
Right.
And hopefully what's best in the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
You got to look at the context that you're in, be aware of who and what's important to you, and then choose a behavior. And when you choose a behavior, that behavior is chosen for its workability rather than for the emotion that's trying to drive it. This is an ongoing artful process that
this never stops.
Right. It never stops because you can't stop the feelings showing up. They keep on showing up.
So this is something you said in a recent podcast, that you're giving people permission to feel.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very much so.
Oh yeah.
Very much so. You feel,
need to be able to do that.
You
so
feel.
You can notice the difference.
You can say, ooh, I feel like, for whatever, maybe amorous reason or something, I really want to do this toward move.
Yeah.
Okay. But it don't mean you have to.
Right.
You can have that feeling and do something else. I mean, it might be a really better time to do an away move. Think about it.
Yep.
Might be a better time to do an away move. That would be more workable for the life that you want. And, so you look at it from this much more distanced point of view.
Yeah.
Rather than this immediate gratification kind of point of view. But yeah, it has nothing, the acceptance part has nothing to do with accepting your lot in life. It's totally opposite from that, actually. It's work your life.
But it does have a lot to do with being non-judgmental in the moment about the noticing of all of this. And we're dropping off the right and the wrong and the good and the bad on purpose because we want people really getting into the present moment and looking at just what's going on without throwing in a lot of those sticky, we call them sticky kind of labels.
Exactly.
Frames.
So, I mean, you are what you are. You have your toward stuff, you have your away stuff.
Yeah, everybody does.
It's no big
deal.
deal.
Just a bunch of humans.
That's cool. No, what are you going to do?
Yep.
We're not, so we're not, you're not bad, good, or indifferent or anything because you have those feelings. You just have those feelings. Okay.
Yep.
But it is really, really important what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And so you're helping people to develop the psychological flexibility so that they can make a workable toward move toward what's important.
Is he way advanced on you?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He just blew you away. The target of all of ACT is psychological flexibility, which there's the definition of it is to be able to persist in behaviors for your life, that work for your life in the presence of what's going on inside of you. Mm-hmm. That's psychological flexibility. So you've let go pretty much of the pulls of toward and away that are going on inside of you, and instead you're using a wiser mind and say, okay, given the situation that I'm in, what's the best move? And I have the feelings, that's fine.
Yep.
The feelings are fine. You see, a lot of psychology was based on don't have those feelings.
Yeah.
Don't have that.
Yeah.
Don't have that. And this, all of ACT is about, oh, sure, have those feelings. That's fine. That's it. what's the workable move in the situation? That's the question.
Mm.
And that's while you're having those feelings. And this is practice, folks. Don't for a moment think Kevin's way good at this and does it easy peasy from sun up to sundown. No, it is an ongoing practice that you do this stuff. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun. But that is called psychological flexibility. That is the targeted act.
You mentioned fun, and I have noticed that in a lot of the work that you do stress the importance of keeping it light, of keeping it fun, and of using straightforward, simple language as well. Why do you feel that those elements are so crucial to your work?
One, people learn better when they're having fun.
Yep. People like to smile, Izzy.
They just like to smile. They're more energized. They got more.
You start to lean in.
Exactly. They're more curious. How when you're really sad and drugged, you feel horrible and stuff. How curious are you?
Not very.
No. Not very curious.
You just want to curl up somewhere,
Well, yeah, and you kind of narrows your focus as well. I find that depression really narrows your focus, whereas
And
you're also narrowing what you're doing at the same time.
You can get way out of control fun, and that'll blow your on the other side.
Yeah.
We really don't have a lot of that. So, but we want to keep it entertaining and keep that curiosity out.
Yeah.
Keep
the learning going. Keep them wanting to learn.
Life is wonderfully curious. It just keeps throwing new curveballs at you. And you can either curse the curveballs. I'm using a sports analogy here. American baseball, where the pitchers throw curveballs.
It would be a googly in cricket, I think.
A googly, okay. They throw in cricket. There you go. We got both sports going on now. Life's just that way. The pitchers know that life knows better than to throw down the middle of the plate at you all the time, or whatever. It just doesn't work that way. And so, but if you can accept it with curiosity and that you're having fun, and there's this idea, and I just sent Phil this video. It's really well done.
The Alan Watts video, yeah.
Alan Watts video is really done, and Alan Watts it's a philosopher. And he said, life isn't a journey because you're not going anywhere except to death. And you're like, hey, Phil, let's go on vacation. Where are we going? Death.
Yeah. You go and tell me all about it, Kevin.
Tell you what, I'll stay here.
Yeah.
And you go.
Send me a postcard.
All right. I don't want to go there. All right. It's not a destination. It's not that. And we're sort of taught, we're socialized that life is a journey. Life is enjoying it right now. That's what life is. It's really about enjoying it. And I don't mean drinking and drugging and partying and being nuts, but it is enjoying the circumstances you're in now and figuring out what you need to do next. That kind of stuff.
And curiosity certainly helps.
Curiosity, yes. Keep queuing it up.
Moment to moment curiosity.
Yeah.
And instead of this, hey, work hard, save up, Phil, and you will reach. Where will you reach, Phil? Oh,
I have no idea.
Right,
that thing you're talking about. I don't want to go there just yet.
Like, hold on a minute. Why am I working hard and saving up for that? That doesn't make any sense. But that's sort of the bill of goals. And Alan Watts, they made this video. It's really well done. But that's basically, in ACT, they call it this present moment
awareness.
Contact with the present moment, right? Yeah. And that's what they're talking about, folks. They're not talking about going, and
we're not navel gazing here.
No. You're running around life. You're doing stuff, but you're paying attention to what's going on outside of you, and you're paying attention to what's going on inside of you. And you're encountering all this stuff with this genuine curiosity, with this question of, well, what might work next? No, and it is not like I don't want to do nothing with my life. You know, people don't have that. And that's not what Alan Watts was talking about.
No.
No,
But how can I put something together in the present moment that feels pretty good to me and seems to be, you know, moving me in the direction, the relationship direction. So,
and I think if you have that attitude, then when you do something and it doesn't work, you're like, oh, that's interesting. That didn't work. so what do I try now?
Hopefully you learn something.
Yeah. Rather than it being you thinking, well, okay, I won't try anything ever again. I did want to get on.
Failure.
Oh, sorry. I did want to get on to the work that you do with groups as well, because the second loop around the matrix, you call it pro-social.
Yeah, I was hanging around with the pro-social folks.
Okay.
What was it,
Yeah.
11 or 12 or something?
Yeah.
And they asked me to simplify pro-social. So I did.
Who are the pro-social folks?
David Sloan Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
Steve Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
and they were working off
Tony Bigland.
Yeah, Tony Bigland, right. And they were working off Eleanor Ostrom's work. She was a Nobel Prize laureate, looked at how.
Oh, the commons,
Right.
Tragedy of the Commons.
Tragedy of the Commons, right. And they were doing that, and, you know, and they were making it really complicated. I know they might listen to this, but come on, guys, you know, you were making it really complicated. And so they asked me to simplify it. So
they've recently published a book, haven't they?
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
It's not easy. I have it. It's not easy. You know, it's well enough. So here's what Kevin did. Everybody drum roll. Take out your matrix.
Okay.
Erase the question, who's important to you? Replace it with the question, what's your shared purpose? Now you're talking to two or more people. So I asked the two or more people, hey, what's your shared purpose? What are you working on together? What would you like to work on together?
We're doing an interesting interview for Shrink Wrap Radio, the three of us together.
So there you go. See, she did it.
Go.
She answered for us, and there we go. That's our shared purpose. That becomes, and so okay. Now we're done with Kevin's simplification.
That's how simple it is.
I can be brief. I can be horribly brief, and that's what I did. I just switched the question of the matrix to include two or more people. Well, now you just do the rest of the matrix the same as you always did.
Yep.
Now you do, if you know it, you know that you switch the target from psychological flexibility to psychological safety, meaning what you want for people to work well together is that they feel safe, psychologically safe, which basically means that you're not going to get your head bit off for saying something.
And that people have your back.
You know, right. People are protecting you and all that. And so then we just ask, you know, now the next question, hey, is there any kind of yucky stuff that can show up inside of team members or group members or however you want to say it?
Or classroom members.
Or classroom members that can get in the way of moving toward the shared purpose. What do you think, Izzy? Do you think there's stuff that could show up and get in the way?
The fear of being ridiculed by the people that you work with.
Oh, no.
Fear of
That's a biggie. That one will stop you in your tracks.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, I'm a woman. I'm a woman who works in football, which is a very male-dominated industry. So you know, if I say something that's stupid, it's because I'm a woman. Whereas if a man says something stupid, it's just because he said something stupid. You know?
Exactly.
It has a lot of kind of feedback.
Right, and psychological. When you get into talking about this, you know, the world for women and the world for men is totally
very different space.
It is different. I mean, I have the freedom to walk to my car with this almost no fear whatsoever. My wife does not share that. She doesn't. Yeah. She's trained into her to be afraid, to look under the car, to be
look around, have your keys out ready.
Have your keys out, do all the stuff. Folks, think about that simple thing and how psychologically unsafe that makes women feel. You know, they run around in that. Well, then you get into a male-dominated world like football, you know, sports.
Yep.
There you go. That's a whole different thing. It's really different. So it's nice to look at it, but that's the target. It's like
Yeah.
Now, the intervention, by the way, would be to get people talking about that.
Yeah.
What's our shared purpose? What could show up and get in the way?
Just like we're doing now.
Just like we're doing now. Now, Izzy says that in amongst all the men. And they go, oh, really? We didn't know you felt that way.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's true. They probably
probably
don't realize.
At least some of them would go, well,
Yep.
that's not cool.
Yep.
Well, I wonder what we can do. And now here we're going. And so now we're moving around the shared purpose. And there's all kinds of other stuff that could show up inside of people. Jealousy. Can show up.
Competitiveness.
Competitiveness. All kinds of things can show up and muck up the shared purpose stuff. And that's just the inside stuff. And then we get into, well, what kind of things do group members do to move away from that yucky stuff? Okay, we'll cut to the chase. They like to gossip.
Yeah. Number one.
That's number one. That's the most favorite around the world in group situations. You got something feeling yucky, go gossip. About the people who were there.
Yeah.
People take sick days sometimes if they're really
that's a great
stressed in a situation.
Exactly. All that stuff comes on, and now we can talk about it just because we're having a good time talking about it. And of course, the $1 million question is always, well, what can we do to move toward the shared purpose? That goes in the upper right, and of course, that's an ongoing discussion about what we can do to move us in the direction we want to go. And now the whole group's having this interesting conversation, curious conversation about that, and it works really, really well. That's the classroom for you. And so now we'll go back to Phil's classroom anecdote. This has been done many, many times.
Oh, yes.
Hey.
Oh, you're the teacher and you're sitting there. Okay, so I'm Mr. Tenaglia and I'm here to teach reading today. That's my purpose for showing up. What brought you here today, Kevin?
I didn't like being at home.
Oh, there you go. So you're here because you didn't like being at home. That's great. Hey, Izzy, what brought you here today?
I wanted to learn to read.
Oh, wow. You actually want to be cool. So I write that all down, right?
You write it all down.
It don't matter. I'm just going to write it all down. I just want to know what brought you in the room. That's all I want to do as a teacher to begin.
I gave him that one just so he could do that.
Yeah, right.
Just so he could go, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Write it down. Instead of, what do you mean only to get away from it?
And this is about meeting people where they are.
Yeah, exactly. So you can be there as the teacher with the student that's only there because he doesn't want to be here. And that's okay because he's right there in the room with you. So
that's cool.
That's what got him in. I'm glad.
And it's honest and it's okay. That's fine.
And kids love it because just as you said, Izzy, you are doing two things. You're validating the student and you're meeting them where they are, which is it's the same thing. It's happening at the same time.
And it's literally you really do internally. It's okay.
They like it.
I know that you're here for that purpose. Cool. That's neat. Let's go on, and then we'll go on,
and then we'll go around the loop.
And so, but you can do it in a workplace. Hey, how many workplaces have forgotten what their shared purpose are? That would be most of them. I do study this. I do go into that. Yeah, if you go into a workplace and you ask people that question, what's your shared purpose? You get a bunch of blank stares.
And I think what you were saying about when people start to express their own yucky stuff, it suddenly for everyone to realize, oh, they feel like that too. Oh, they have that feeling. Exactly. That must lead to a whole lot more connectedness and safety within the group.
There you go. There she's at it. Psychological safety. And that's what you're bringing up and you're lifting up in the room is you're bringing up the psychological
shared
safety.
Humanity.
And it's cool and it works really well. And that's don't go further than that, folks. If we did that with every business in the world, we would take care of about 80% of the problems. And 80% would be a really good number. So we'll just leave it at that.
Oh yeah.
So you guys, you do a podcast and you run a certification program. What's your tell us about what you're actually doing and what your aims are and how people can get hold of you.
Well, right now we're talking to you, Izzy.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's so.
And that's what's important, right?
And that's what's important. Exactly. And other than that, we do this. The purpose of our certification is, one, we were asked to do it basically.
Yeah, it came from within.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it
Because you haven't sort of like got some kind of patent on the ACT matrix at all.
No,
I mean,
no, no,
No, no, no.
oh, no. We give all that away. No.
Yeah.
Well, anybody can use it anywhere, anytime.
You can say you do the matrix, all that stuff, please.
But there was, the first one was an attorney who said, and by the way, he's really good at doing this.
Yeah, he really is. He
And,
really is.
he said, I need certification. And we said,
Yeah.
back then it was just me doing it. And I said, okay, I'll make one. And so I did it. And then I got semi-retired and Phil came in and did it with me. There's just lots of people who like the certification thing. Then, then they get in, they play with us. And we're like this all the time.
Yeah.
We never break off of this routine.
No.
Izzy knows.
Yes.
We're like this all the time. And then they get to having a good time hanging out with us, and we have mastermind meetings and stuff. And we think of different ways to market and get the diagram
Get
into
the word out, get people using it.
right. And
Yeah.
and it's just fun. And but some people wanted certification, so we offered it. We have, are we up to like 5, 6 people in the next class?
Yes.
We're talking to Izzy on January the 6th. 2020.
yeah.
And then the next class starts on the 8th, and we have 5 or 6 people in that, which is a good number. That's great. We could probably withstand up to 10 or 12, but after that, we wouldn't. It would be too
It would
many.
get, right.
We don't have that problem right now.
No.
But one of the things, because you do a masterclass as well as the certification program, and I was reading Irving Yalom's autobiography, and one of and he was talking about all these different groups that he was involved with. And when I was reading it, I was thinking, God, he's so lucky. I mean, he was able to be in a group for psychotherapists and a group for professionals interested in certain other things, and he was a member of about like 4 different groups for some of them for periods of years, some for periods of decades. And I thought, because professional life in the areas that you're interested in can be quite lonely.
Yes.
And actually for me, one of the main things has been to be able to talk about and listen to in a live format ideas that interest me.
Yeah.
And I actually think there is a real space for that, for people being able to explore ideas that interest them.
Yeah,
We do that.
I agree. And we've had people in our mastermind say just that, just what you said. They like the mastermind because it's the one group that they can come to where we're all supporting each other. It's very pro-social. It's very open-ended. And we're all just grabbing from each other and trying out different things. It's a great space. And I agree with you.
And you have in there a lot of, a lot of different therapists and counselors who work with different traditions and are using the matrix.
We have lawyers, teachers, sports coaches, coaches.
Oh yes, sport. We needed to bring that up because you've also developed a particular use of the matrix for sport as well.
No, we didn't develop it. We just stole it back from the coaches that got it and put it in.
Right.
We just took it back. We just know what they're up to. Years ago, it got picked up by, I think it was the Australian Olympic swim team.
Okay.
And somehow the coach got a hold of it and got to use it then. It's been in British Olympics, Netherlands, water polo teams.
Wow.
It is in Major League Baseball in the United States, and got several others. It's basketball, that. And so we knew what was going on, what they were doing with it. So we named it Sports Flow Matrix. Yeah. And it's really when you change the focus away from everything else, and you say, well, we're really going to narrow down and talk about sports.
Yeah.
Well, in the end of the day, we're going to talk about sports. However, you'll learn something very quickly is you can't ignore who and what's important to you. Right. Even in sports, it's still sports. It still starts with who and what's important.
Yes.
So do people name people, or do they say winning?
What's that?
Do people name people, or do they just say, well,
Well,
what's
what?
important to
They'll
me
talk
in this
about
situation
winning.
is winning?
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. And who you want to win for, Izzy?
Oh, my nation.
There you go.
Okay.
So your nation's important to
There
you.
you go. Can't get away from it.
All right. So no, I can throw it right back to, you don't want to win. I think you also want to win for you.
Well, yes, that was what I was going to say, but I didn't
Right.
want to sound like
No,
some
all right.
egotistical
That's okay.
narcissist.
Yeah. That's what they're all trying to do.
That's what gets you
Yeah.
out there and doing it. That's
Yeah.
not a problem. We just want people to draw the picture and draw the most complete picture they can. But you would be remiss in not reminding them that this all revolves around who and what's important to you.
Right.
That's where your core motivations are coming from. That's what gets you up every morning at 4:30 a.m. or whatever to go do this thing. And
The big motivator.
Right. Now, the thing that they've, of course, what everybody gravitates to is the lower left quadrant of sports, the stuff that can show up and get in the way.
Fear of injury, fear of failure.
Keep going. Right. That's what
Fear of fill in the blank.
fear of fill in the blank. Right. And that's what gets in the way. No matter what kind of sport you're in. You said you're into football. What shows up and gets in the way of footballers? They're doing their best.
Yeah.
We would go ask them, but we can guess some of the things that show up. As you said, fear of injury.
Yeah.
For sure. How about fear of making a fool of yourself?
Yes. Fear of not being as good as they or somebody else thinks they are.
And there's your ridicule again now showing up.
Like that. So we just want to talk about that out in the open. Now, you can do it either on an individual basis with an
or a
individual
team.
player,
Do with the team. Yes.
or you can go out to
Using
the
their
team
second
level.
loop.
And that's the second loop. So it's just the artful use of whether you're talking with an individual or you're going out for the team level. But by doing that, all of the team knows what everybody's working on.
Yeah.
They all know the same point of view. They all know the matrix, loop 1 and loop 2. And it just makes for great camaraderie.
Yeah.
That they can now it's easier for them to empathize with each other's situation.
Shared point of view, shared language.
It's just, in most sports psychology, it just doesn't have that. And a lot of it is devoted to getting rid of stuff. Come on, let's face it. Don't think those
Symptom reduction and removal.
symptom reduction kind of stuff. And we don't do that. We go, oh, so you're feeling like, you're going to go out there and make a fool of yourself. Yeah. Well, write that down. Been there, done that. Yeah. Well, and then they might even say, so I'm supposed to get rid of that. Good luck with that. You're not going to get rid of that. It won't go away. It's inside your head. Stuff inside your head doesn't go away like that. The trick is to learn how to have it and do. Have and do. And once you then do that, then you're not expending so much energy trying to get rid of stuff. And that's where the big advantage comes in.
Can I ask you a secret question? Okay, so when you can have the feelings and do the feelings kind of be less?
They go in the background.
Do they? They do. They
become less important.
The perception is they're more distant.
Yeah.
Which is called psychological distancing.
That's it. Yeah.
Cool.
They would say diffused. They're more diffused.
Right.
Which is like, there was a sharp image of them, and now it's gone back to a blurry.
Oh yes, Steve Hayes does that, doesn't he? In one of the talks.
And we're bringing up the who and what's important to you. That's coming more to the forefront.
That's more to the forefront.
Right.
And particularly what the heck you need to be doing in the moment out in the sport.
That's really the kicker right there.
That needs to be at the forefront.
Yeah.
And these other things go to the back, but they're there. You're not trying to not have them.
So while you're not expending the energy and trying to push them away, you have more energy to focus on.
You freed up your energy to be in the moment, doing what you want to be doing.
Right. And so then you get into the zone, right? Or the flow.
Yeah.
Sports flow. You're getting, everybody in sports wants to get into the flow or the zone, whatever they want to call it. They want to get into that. And we all know how that is. If we played They oftentimes talk about if you're playing a sport with a ball, the ball gets bigger. You know, it's as if you're playing with a bigger ball. You know, you're so in the zone. You're seeing it so well.
Yeah.
And you're seeing, like if you're in football, you're seeing the patterns of the player. It's just instantly, it's all there. You can see it all, and that's the zone. And then, you know, and then it goes away, and then the whole thing is to get back there.
Yeah.
It's always to get back. Yeah, and whatever sport you're in, that's what it is. And what we're trying to give with the sports flow is how people can gently get back there. And sort of planfully go out to set up the probability but set it up so you have the highest probability of repeating the zone again. That's what we're doing. And you do it with a matrix and staring at the center of it, choosing something to focus on, all that good kind of stuff. So.
Well, I'm mindful of your time now, and but I don't know if there's anything particular that you sort of wanted to bring up that you felt really needed to be.
We'll leave that up to Phil. Phil, do you have something?
Well, you know, well, look.
No, what did you have to bring up? Did you have something?
I didn't have anything other than to say that, you know, one of the things that we're looking at that Kevin brought up is we're going to have a trifold coming out pretty soon. That might be
some big exciting news.
Yeah. So
you guys can't believe how excited I am for this trifold to come out.
A trifold.
So, a trifold. So one of the things, and I'm going to go back to Kevin, way back when he wrote the first book. He edited the first book, and he asked me to write the chapter on education. So my chapter is promoting psychological flexibility in education. And that's really been my mission ever since. And my mission, and Kevin is right with me on this, I'm really piggybacking up him, is to get the matrix into the drinking water of schools. Literally.
Think of a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And you fold it like this.
Yeah. And it's laminated.
Mm-hmm. So it's laminated.
Plastic.
And it's this fold. It's like a menu.
Yeah.
A bit like a menu.
When you go to the restaurant, you get the menu, and okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we mean by trifold. So it folds up. And so you hand it to the person, and they can unfold it. And there's, on one side is loop 1.
Right.
Flip it over, and then there's loop 2.
Loop 2.
I mean, this is the epitome of what I've been going for.
Right.
This is less words. You don't need to write a whole book. You just need to write a trifold. Just
hand it to somebody.
So you're going to be producing this, and
it's going to be distributed through a group called National Professional Resources.
Wow.
Right.
And they're a group that does this for all kinds of different professionals, and they do these laminated trifolds, books, whatever. And so I have gotten together with them, and they're very excited about getting it out. So hopefully by next month, by February, it's going to be out in the world.
Yeah, we'll do a big podcast,
and we'll bring. Yeah, we're going to hawk it up.
We're gonna be showing people how they can use them as umbrellas.
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday. You can have lunch on them. You know, you can carry your lunch around.
Eat your lunch on them.
Trifold flexibility.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
See, Ezzy's in with us. We want all these flexible uses for these trifolds.
Yeah,
we were talking about earlier how to deal with a difficult boss.
Oh yes, we did a little live webinar today.
I won't go into that.
Yeah, right.
My favorite intervention is just slip one of those trifolds on the difficult boss's desk.
Yeah, just lay it there. Just have it laying there
and leave. So I go, huh? We drove this by, and they just look at it.
You're curious. You're curious.
That's what you want.
They open it up.
They open it up and look at it. I want to lay these things everywhere. You know, I'm going to take them outside the White House.
Take them to number 10 Downing Street as well.
Go there too.
Not throw them over the fence.
Well, they're very portable. They can go anywhere.
But I can at least go to the gate and hand them to people and say, would you take these inside, please? You can test them. They're really not.
Yeah, really.
They're very innocuous. But yeah, exactly. You see, and then with that kind of a thing, then people can say, well, tell me a little bit more about this. Well, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
And as we get this point of view, and it's this non-judgmental point of view. You're not judging people with this point point of view. And I don't care who you're working with, even if you really don't like them, still, when you ask them the matrix questions, it's just the matrix questions.
Yep, that's it.
That's all it is. It's non-judgmental. You're just assisting them in drawing that little self-portrait out onto it. So I really look forward to the trifold coming out, so I can just have fun with that. We'll spread it around and give it to my friends and relatives and stuff. Well, it'll be my only handout too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll show up to, I'll go up to Halifax in Nova Scotia, and I'll bring me 20 of those or whatever. I don't know. Here you go. Here's your handout.
Yep.
And they won't throw them away because they're laminated.
Yeah.
Everyone loves a laminated. And if it's laminated, the good thing is you can write on them with those.
You can do it
pens.
exactly. You can put more sticky notes, whatever you want to do with them.
Sticky notes on them, whatever, and then you can say, and it's multi-purpose if you need.
Hey, if it's raining out, you can put it over your head, keep the rain off. There's all kind of things you can do.
And you want to have one of these and a couple of these in your car just in case. Maybe you could put them under your wheel and get going. I'm going for. There's all this stuff we're playing with is called derived relational responding.
Right.
It's just creativity. It's how you blow.
And that is one of the great things about the matrix, is it really helps you to get creative.
So we want people to get creative with it, including how they're going to use the thing.
Just take it and use it any way you want.
You can use it for babies, right? Put it on their high chair and.
Oh yeah, or instead of a bib, you can get a little pegs.
Oh, I guess you could poke a couple of holes in it and put a string around it. Hey, this is good. Now we're really. Oh, but you could use it for a lobster feed then. You know how they put the bibs on?
Oh yeah.
We go on and on. We have fun with this, but anyway, the part of the having fun is to try and think of ways to get it
to use it.
Well, they'll cost.
I think they're going to be like $12.95. It's a very
okay. Yes. That won't be free, but come on.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so usable. It's pathetic.
They'll last forever.
We'll make them part of our training things, and we'll send them out to people.
Yep.
Oh, that's brilliant. So with your certification certificate, you get a trifold.
You get your trifold. There you go.
I managed to get a trifold.
Tuck it underneath your arm and off you go.
Well, I love it.
Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Sorry if we've been too silly.
No, you haven't been too silly at all. You've been absolutely delightful.
Okay.
But